Hey guys, welcome back to CJ Creates. This week, we're unveiling our 100th Pokemon for the Wentano region, not counting G-Max and Hero Max and Fury Max forms, so a pretty big deal. This week comes a little late, but only because I created 5 new Pokemon instead of my normal 3 or 4. You're getting 2 evolutionary lines for the price of 1 week, even though they're all free anyways. I'm not here for math, I'm here for drawing. Stop asking questions, okay? It's fine. Anyways, like I said, this week we're making more Pokemon for the Wentano region, and I'm not going to waste any more time, so let's get right into it. If you're not already caught up to speed, my region, the Wentano region, is based on Western America, meaning California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, that kind of an area. And one thing that I really want to focus on is that Western aspect. We've done this a little bit with Pokemon like Miss Nimbus, which is an evolution of my regional variant of mischievous. It's a whole Western Dust Devil Sheriff combo type thing. You can go watch that video if you really want to know more. Other than that, I've focused a lot more on native cultures, and so I want to create a couple new Pokemon to tie back into that Western concept, the idea of settlers and what they came to this region for, because well, that's part of our overarching themes of individuality, unity, people coming together, all that kind of stuff. How do we combine and manage these different cultures? As part of that Western culture, I'm going to focus on something really important to cowboys: horses. I know what you're thinking. There's like a million horse Pokemon. I mean, specifically, like if I really think about it, I've got 5. You have your more classic Pokemon examples like Ponyta, Rapidash, but you also have legendary Pokemon or mythical Pokemon like Keldeo or Glacier. And you have some regional evolutions for Ponyta as well. There's a lot of horse Pokemon and a lot of ways that this has been done already. In fact, I would say that generally, horse Pokemon have done a good job of differentiating themselves in terms of size, shape, and theme as well. And so that is something that really needs to happen with my Pokemon. I can't make another horse Pokemon that looks like something that already exists. We have great examples of unicorns in Rapidash. You have your classic Clydesdale in Mudsdale, which I guess that's in the name. You have a really cool, like, mythical unicorn as well with Keldeo. And then Glacier and Spectral are kind of their own just horses, right? They're generic horses. Well, I want to capture the idea of a colt and a mustang. These are icons in American culture, at least American cowboy culture, to the point where we're naming guns and cars after them. 2 things that Americans love. Shocker. The easiest way to set my Pokemon apart is going to be theme and concept, which is why you've probably noticed it has pickaxe legs. Boom. Colt. Coal. Mining. It's a horse that mines stuff by kicking out its back pickaxe legs into the wall. But what's it mining for? Well, what brought a lot of people out west was gold and other precious metals, but mostly gold. We're not shy about it. We named a whole football team, another thing Americans love, after this fact. So, you've got this coal mining, but not really coal mining. It's a colt mining Pokemon with pickaxe legs that digs its own mines and looks for precious metals. It actually even goes as far as to consume them, which then cover its coat and become the Pokemon that it is. You'll also notice that we're going to have some variants of gold, silver, and copper, and I'll show you all 3 of those patterns, and we'll get into more of the lore of this Pokemon with its evolution. For now, meet Coaltine, the colt mining Pokemon. Coaltine are a curious Pokemon who use their specialized back legs to kick tunnels into mountainsides. You may think that these specialized limbs resemble pickaxes, but in reality, settlers of Wentano witness this Pokemon in action and design tools to mimic them instead. They dig through solid rock in order to find precious ores, which are then incorporated into their coats after being eaten. Now my favorite part. I've walked you through the general concept of one Pokemon, and I'm going to use this spot to talk more about the lore, I guess. You see, Coaltine is a pretty unique Pokemon. It's got a unique ability in that back leg kick thing that digs through solid rock. That's nothing to sneer at. The only problem was that no one did sneer at it. You see, when settlers of Wentano saw this Pokemon in action, they originally crafted their own tools to look like it, but sadly, many tried to take advantage of this Pokemon. They realized that it was much more effective than it would ever be and began to employ being a loose term, it in their mining efforts. Sadly, this Pokemon was abused, and though it didn't have an evolution before settlers came to Wentano, it now does because of this fact. Kind of like what you get with Primeape when it evolves, it's overworked itself, and sadly, passed away. I know, I come up with a lot of sad Pokemon backstories. I can't help myself, but I think it facilitates a really interesting path for this Pokemon's evolution. You see, one thing that we love within our cowboy stories is the idea of like a phantom stranger, some kind of ghost sheriff, grim reaper type combo who hunts wicked men across the West. That's sort of a legend. That's what this Pokemon is going to embody. At least half of it is. The other thing that it's going to be is a train. Now, you might be saying, mining, trains, what's the connection? They don't make sense together. And that's maybe true, except for that the mining of these ores led to the ability to build trains. And those trains, in turn, really connected America in a way that you might not expect. Even within the area of America that I'm basing my region off of, there's a famous spot called the Golden Spike, which is essentially the final spike to complete a railroad that would connect the east and west coast of the continent, which maybe doesn't sound like a big deal to you, but at the time, it changed people's lives. It allowed us to transport materials much farther than ever before. And so this Pokemon is supposed to embody the power of a train. Think not just, oh, it's really strong, it's really fast, but literally the amount of horsepower that a train can generate. And it's a spooky ghost who's taking revenge on people. The coolest detail that I really, really love about this Pokemon is the train whistle on the bridge of its nose, snout, whatever you want to call it. I imagine that as this Pokemon runs at top speed, you hear an eerie whoo, and it gets higher and higher pitch the faster it runs. That's how you know this Pokemon's coming for you. Now, in modern times, this Pokemon's not going to be overworked as much because I'm assuming people would probably still be abusing it, but that's no longer commonplace. But this Pokemon can still overwork itself, and these evolutions are rare, but do still happen, sadly. Meet Equinox, the spectral mustang Pokemon. Equinox are a product of greed that regrettably still exists today. Coaltine's ability to sniff out precious metals has made it the target of greedy industrialists who force it into laboring for their own wealth and profits. Should Coaltine overwork itself, mining or not, it can literally die and come back as a spectral steam engine powered by vengeance. These Pokemon can pull entire locomotives and their nose whistles at high speed. Now, after all of that heavy conversation, let's do something a little bit sillier, a little bit more lighthearted. You know what's funny about gold? People love it. It's essentially worthless in terms of practical application. Now, that's not entirely true. There are things that we use gold for within the technology create and things like that. But in terms of what people have historically used gold for, in terms of like statue making and jewelry and coinage I guess is probably pretty practical. It's just valuable because people like how it looks, which is okay. But it's led to an unfortunate but hilarious term that we call fool's gold, because people love gold so much that it turns them into fools. Now, that's not actually true. We call fool's gold because it's not gold and it fools people. It turns them into fools, I guess you could say. And that is the concept for this Pokemon. Now, it may not surprise you to learn this, but fool's gold is not even a metal. It's what we call iron sulfite or pyrite, in other words. And it's a rock. It's a mineral. You can count those as rocks. I do. Rocks and minerals and rocks. It's not metal, right? That's the point. Regardless, I want to do something kind of funny with this concept. You see, I want to create a Pokemon that it's not hoarding fool's gold. It doesn't even care. That's just what it's made out of. And it is entirely, and I would say justifiably so, sick of people thinking that it's made of gold. So what does it do? It forms itself into the shape of a hand or a fist, and it takes out its anger on people who may come and try and pick it up. That's what you get with this Pokemon, is a rock Pokemon who's not very big, but packs quite a punch, literally, because its whole body is just an arm and a hand, and it uses that to take out its anger on people. Is that complicated? Not really. Is it funny? I think so. Hopefully you do too. But for now, meet Festwhite, the golden hand Pokemon. Festwhite have an incredibly deceptive appearance to them, as at first glance portions of their body appear metallic in nature. A closer inspection reveals that they're made of stone, and the shiny areas are in fact iron sulfite known as pyrite. They love to wander through caves and tunnels, and are known to pack quite a punch should you try and steal the false gold that adorns their hard stone bodies. So, that's the whole concept. It's a fool's gold Pokemon, but what are we gonna do with it? I don't want to do something that's already been done. If you haven't noticed, that's kind of my thing. I want to find new things, new directions we can take these Pokemon in. So, what hasn't been done yet in Pokemon? Well, hear me out. What if this Pokemon was really good at hand-to-hand combat? Now, you may be thinking to yourself, CJ, there's a whole type of Pokemon called fighting-type Pokemon that are incredibly good at hand-to-hand combat. But I think you've misheard me. You heard hand-to-hand combat, which is kind of what I said, but I said hand-to-hand combat, which means hand-to-hand combat. Anything that is a hand sport, meaning thumb wrestling, rock, paper, scissors, those slap fights that people have been getting in on the internet. Stuff like that is what I'm referring to when I say hand-to-hand combat. If you're not hearing the difference, that's on you. Just listen to the playback a couple times, I'm sure you'll pick up on it. Regardless, this Pokemon, who was a fist, now has two fists, making it twice as good at hand-to-hand combat. So, you've heard my pitch, and you're probably thinking he's doing another rock fighting type. We already have one of those in this region. What is he doing? Well, it's actually not going to be a fighting type. I don't know how to explain this very well, but I guess in my mind, the kind of hand-to-hand combat that I'm talking about, things like rock, paper, scissors, and thumb wrestling, aren't really fighting. Like, they are, but in the same way that chess is a sport, right? Chess is, I love you guys if you love chess. Chess is not a sport, not in the same way that soccer or football or football is. You know what I mean? It's not the same. And so this Pokemon, as much as it loves its form of combat, is not a fighting type. What it is really good at is making cube shapes. Now, that probably doesn't mean too much to you, but this Pokemon specifically can take the iron sulfite, the pyrite that is in its body, and make perfect cube shapes in them. This is because there's what we call in minerals, and technically anything, a lattice of molecules. It's how they arrange themselves, and it forms geometric shapes. That's why when crystals grow, they grow in those prismatic shapes that you see them in so popularly. Pyrite has the unique distinction of being cube-shaped when it's in this lattice structure. And so you can find it naturally not in this structure, right? If you just dig it up, you're not going to dig up cubes, but you can, which is really interesting. So what this Pokemon does do is it takes that mineral, the pyrite, shapes it into cubes, and places that on its body to create its fingers and the big cube that you see at the middle of its body. Meet Pywrestle, the golden fist Pokemon. Pywrestle's body has the unique ability to align pyrite into square cuboid shapes. This can be seen specifically in its main body, which has taken the shape of a large cube. Pywrestle love to engage each other in hand-to-hand combat, meaning all forms of rock, paper, scissors, thumb wrestling, and the like. They do not hold back and have broken many hands and arms of humans foolish enough to challenge them. You know, something funny happened to me while I was trying to record the audio for this video. It happened when I was thinking, which I probably need to do more, but when I was doing that cool thinking thing that you kids keep talking about, I got caught up in the fact that I made a Pokemon that was just a hand, and I thought that was so cool. And then I realized that Beldum is just a hand, and that it's very cool. Not my thing, but that Beldum is very cool. I like mine okay. I think it's good. But The funny thing is, the more and more I thought about it, and not that my final Pokemon resembles Metagross in any way, I really don't think it does, but conceptually, to go from a Pokemon that's just a hand to a Pokemon that walks on 4 legs is kind of funny that it happened coincidentally, right? Now, my Pokemon's different. It's also got 2 arms, so 6 limbs total, but it is very on brand for what this Pokemon is undergoing. Now, I know I've talked about this probably too many times on this channel, but carcinization is this weird phenomenon in nature where things just keep turning into crabs. We know why. It's because it's an effective body plan. It's really good as a survival strategy to be a crab. And so independently, multiple different organisms have taken on this body plan and the survival strategy that true crabs do, which is kind of funny. My Pokemon, it looks like a fiddler crab, and we'll get into why in a second, but I just wanted to base it off that without it having to actually be a crab, so technically it underwent some carcinization. But coincidentally, it underwent a very similar process to Metagross. Like I said, it was a hand, now it's something that walks on 4 legs. It had 1 eye, now it has 2 eyes. There's just some weird similarities where you wouldn't look at this and say that's a Metagross clone, but you also wouldn't look at things like lobsters and say that's a crab clone. You know what I mean? But still, it does happen. Just a funny coincidence. This Pokemon is based on fiddler crabs, though, because we don't have a fiddler crab Pokemon. We kind of do. I should add a little asterisk in terms of Clawitzer. Clawitzer is more of a shellfish, though, with 1 giant claw, like a fiddler crab has. But my Pokemon is meant to be more of a true fiddler crab Pokemon, except for that it's not a water type and has never seen crabs or anything like that. Conceptually, I want something that walks around like a crab does, so it's got the 4 legs to walk sideways, with 1 giant hand and 1 little hand. The fingers have even rearranged themselves so that it's basically 2 claws in 1, and they can grab stuff really effectively with these graspers. You'll also notice that though it's still based around the cube, it's got cubes of pyrite sticking out all over its body, which make for some pretty interesting shapes. Meet Pywrestle, the big golden fist Pokemon. Pywrestle have a curious habit of picking fights with Steel-type Pokemon and are a known predator of small metallic Pokemon like Magnemite. This could be because iron is a primary component in pyrite, and Pywrestle's consumption of it allows them to grow and add to their body. Curiously, this Pokemon has experienced carcinization, even though many never see the light of day, let alone a crab. And there you have it. Some gold mining Pokemon, or I should say ore mining Pokemon, whose appearance change based off of what types of ore they're eating. And you have a fool's gold Pokemon who goes from singular hand that packs a punch to giant stony fiddler crab that packs an even bigger punch. They're not that complicated, but I do love these Pokemon, and they really add to that Western culture I was trying to speak to earlier in the video. If you like these Pokemon too, let me know, and let me know if you don't. I want to hear your feedback. I hope that you guys see this video and go create something awesome of your own. Thank you.